Oh,
on.
okay.
Oh, hang on. Hang on.
I haven't started recording yet,
Ah,
so I can start
okay.
when it's good for you. Have you done your thing already that
Yeah,
you okay.
everything's
So you're
good.
good.
We are
Good.
streaming. I'm recording. I am in Marfa, Texas.
Ben Lawrence.
Oh, Goody. How's it going,
So
sir?
it's
How's it
good. So
happening?
you're how's it happening, my good man? So you are in Texas.
I'm in a little town called Marfa. It is in West Texas, at a place called Hotel Paisano.
Someone saying the word it's Superman and Batman realizing they have the same mother's name while both eating cookies.
Marfa. Why did
Whole
you
big
say Marfa? It's
yeah,
funny you
exactly.
mentioned cookies. There are fresh baked cookies at the front counter of this hotel.
Oh, come on. I
For
mean, what
real.
are they doing? Um, just to kick off the very beginning of the thing, we are in October. It is
Yeah,
now, what is it, the 26th, I believe?
indeed it is.
Now, when is Election Day in the United States, Ben?
Election day in the United States is November 5th, Tuesday.
November 5th, this Tuesday.
Not the next time we experience a Tuesday, but next Tuesday.
Ah, good. Okay. That's better. And here's the reason why. First of all, let me say, when I say the DMV, then what do you think about?
I think
What are your
uh I think
impressions?
of stand-up comedy where the DMV is often a punchline for a place you don't want to spend, but you have to spend a lot of time.
It is
Primus
often
even has a song, I've been to hell and I spell it the DMV.
yes. DMV stands for Department of Motor Vehicles. No, it's good. So it's and often, sometimes, given as an example of government failure. Um, People say, "Oh, you want the government to run blank? Have you been to the DMV lately?" Etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
As you know, I've recently moved to Chicago, Illinois, and what's something that you hear people say about Chicago? Theoretically, maybe about the politics of Chicago. What do they?
Corrupt, I think is the word you might be
Corrupt.
going for.
Yeah, corrupt, and also failing. Government failure,
Yeah,
government bloat, etc. So I went to get my driver's license. Uh, my new address
right.
in Chicago on my
Which
Chicago
is
driver's license. Yeah, thank you. Um, I will point out to the people at home, I don't think Ben even started with the right consonant of the place where I live. So good joking there, Ben. As far as so no, but the basic thing is this: there is a procedure that you go through when you want to change your address. You have to go to the DMV. You have to get a new license with
yeah.
that new address. The first thing that I noticed, unlike Edwardsville, where I moved from, Chicago DMV requires an appointment at the DMV. So made an appointment, went to the DMV. I walked in, and a guy saw me walk in and said, "Did you get any sort of white slips of paper when you walked in from this other woman?" And we said, we were on just like a lazy river, a current
Of people.
rolling us through all the different places. And we were out of the DMV with our licenses at 3:12. So 12 minutes after our appointment.
Not bad.
The sh- and I'm sorry to save the twist until the end, but the Chicago DMV was, I think, the most efficient
Yeah.
government thing I've ever seen. Outside of, and now see, I'm a little bit different. I'm a little different. I consider like the military and the government, I kind of separate in my head a little bit. But I was going to say the other most efficient thing was when I think it was the Air Force Reserve, or whatever thing did the COVID-19 vaccinations in the Edwardsville area when it was actually
Oh,
in Collinsville,
okay.
but
Yeah.
um, they were also very efficient. And again, I use the term lazy river. Have you been to a place that has a lazy river?
Yeah, I've been to
It's kind
various
of a
hotels that have lazy rivers, but I've not been on them.
it's a sort of circular track with a current. You just get into an inner tube or whatever, and you just sit there and you float down the stream or in the
Yeah.
current or whatever. So it's nice. I'm drinking Ben Health Aid kombucha.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Uh, Close. It's called Cayenne Cleanse. It's cayenne pepper in a drink. Again, still mad at Flaming Hot Mountain Dew because it could have done something a little like this.
I'm drinking Ozarka bottled water, which is
Hmm.
proudly Texan, as you can see.
Hey, since you're in Texas, I don't think that you and I had this conversation. I think it was me and Jennifer, but it's hard to say. Normally, and I know this is weird, whenever it's a conversation here, I assume that I had it with Jennifer. Whenever it's a conversation on the internet, I assume I've had it with you.
Yeah.
Um, so Texas seceding from the Union, always something that they bring up as a possibility,
They want to
etc.
until something bad happens and then they come running to the federal government for help.
Did we talk about? Oh, hey, here's a fun question. So, what's one of the big things that Texas is always concerned about with the federal government? They're always very mad about
Taxes, overreach, getting into your business,
the border, Ben.
the
Exactly.
border.
Number one with the okay, so the border. Oh, what about the border? What about the border? Texas secedes
Millions
from the
and millions
Union.
of migrants crossing the border. They're taking over our jobs.
If Texas were to secede from the Union, the federal government, um, well, all of a sudden now they're in charge of their own border. Um, which I think translates to war with Mexico almost immediately.
And since Texas used to be part of Mexico, then Mexico will be like, we want our land back.
Yeah, exactly. This is my thought. And then they go, "Oh, hey, U.S. government," and the U.S. government goes, "Oh, we have a pretty good relationship with Mexico right now."
In fact, Mexico just elected their first female president. You know, maybe we should foster that relationship.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you imagine, Ben, Kamala Harris? I'm trying to do a. I suddenly subconsciously started doing a Jesse Ventura
Oh,
thing.
brother.
Uh, Kamala Harris gets in, and then the two of them just get a chit chatting, and it gets all crazy. And where's Canada? You know, out in the garage trying to get some peace and quiet. Um, no, that's but for real. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before, but that's exactly what if if Texas secedes from the United States of America, instantly there's a thing with Mexico. Now that becomes like a huge kind of thing.
Yeah, but having driven through a lot of empty Texas today, I don't. I think Mexico has a good chance because because there's like you have your urban areas, like you got
Right.
your Houstons, your San Antonios, your Austins. I think they might be able to work out a an armistice with Mexico, saying, "Hey, look, we have these cities, and we're actually kind of like." Weirdly on your side. We think land like we think land should be given to the people who can foster and nurture it, right? And maybe who had it first. And but all these empty areas, all these empty ranches in West Texas and South Texas, yeah, have them, take them. We'll let you have those.
So Texas gives away part of its land to be nice to
I
Mexico.
don't think it'll be a war. I think it'll be a negotiation where
And
the urban areas are left alone, but the empty vacant lots of oak trees and sagebrush are given to Mexico.
and won't we think, well, Texas, you have matured. Look at and maybe it's a wonderful healing time for everybody. where we're all like, "Hey, this worked out okay." That's nice,
Or
Ben.
there's
I
a
like
war
that.
and Texas asks the U.S. federal government for help, and the president just says, "You made your choice."
Would you like to be a state again? I
Yeah,
think would
exactly.
I think that would happen. I
It's
think
like when Lin-Manuel Miranda was writing Hamilton and he goes up to Hugh Laurie and he's like, I'm writing a song for King George about the colonies. And what would King George say to the colonies? And Hugh Laurie goes, "You'll be back."
is did that really happen?
Yeah, that's well, I mean, I haven't talked to Lin-Manuel Miranda personally, but that's the story that goes
That's the
around.
story. I
I
like that. I
believe
like that
that's
a lot.
I believe that's the story that Hugh Laurie has told on various chat shows. And it actually that line made it into the musical. King
I
George
mean, it
sings those lines.
feels for those of you who have never seen a bit of Fry and Laurie, and only know Hugh Laurie from House, uh, Hugh Laurie
It's
did
not lupus,
musical
but you'll be
numbers and
back.
stuff. Yeah, did musical numbers and stuff. And there's one very, very famous one where he's doing kind of Bruce Springsteen kind of America. He's just singing America over and over again. And then Stephen Fry comes and slaps him in the face, I believe. But I mean, the interesting thing, and I don't know. I mean, this is the thing that people don't get about, if I can just say, Ben, the boss.
Right.
Born in the USA. If you listen to the lyrics of it, not exactly glowing, uh, about it's what
Oh,
people used to say,
it's an
warts and
anti-government song.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This
Now,
is where I throw in
yeah,
just to make myself sound more cooler than I actually am. I met the boss at one point.
did you?
Not like in a social setting. I had to be on a lazy river of people and was shuffled through. But my friend Jeff and I, it was actually Jeff's idea because he's like a bigger fan than I am. He's like, my girlfriend can't make it to this signing and picture taking opportunity with the bot with Bruce Springsteen. Do you want to go with me? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to go with you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I have there's a picture of me and my friend Jeff Schussler standing between us, Bruce Springsteen, and he was very nice considering he was meeting thousands of random strangers that day
yeah.
in Seattle.
You, I was reminded today, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But I was reminded today of Paul F. Tompkins. Oh, here's something, Ben. I've never been on X.
You've never been on
I've been on
acid?
Twitter.
Oh, an
I've been on.
X.
I've been on. I don't think X is acid.
I heard
I
you
don't think
say
the
I've
kids
never been on
call.
acid.
Oh, weird. No, I've never been on the social media platform X.
Formerly known as Twitter, as everybody still writes.
I was only on Twitter.
Yeah,
When I left Twitter, it was still Twitter. So
right.
that's kind of a fun thing. But Paul F. Tompkins kind of shamed me at one point, because
You know
he
you done
said,
goofed.
"Well, I mean, yeah," and this is a. I was talking about how shame is actually still very useful. Like, I went from being, pro AI and like, this is fine, it's not hurting anyone, to being like, oh, okay, I guess it's hurting people
Right,
through shame. Enough
right,
people going, no, this is bad, and if you like it, you are bad. To go, okay, well, I like all these people who say that I'm wrong,
right.
and all the people who say that I'm right aren't great. I suppose that this is the right side of where I should be. So anyway, the point being, Paul Tompkins on Twitter says, I'm doing a show in Seattle, this date, and I wrote back to it and said, I'll try to come. And he says, yeah, and in quotes, try.
Is
And I
that
was
the
like,
show
okay,
that
I'm going.
is that the show that you and I went to?
Yeah, and he remembered that interaction. It was very magnanimous about it, which I thought was great.
I've probably told this story in the podcast before, but I had a very awkward interaction with Paul F. Tompkins after that show because you and I sat in the front row.
Oh yeah, it
And
was.
it was like your birthday or something. It was like
Yeah,
we went there because you wanted to see it. I'm like, I like Paul F. Tompkins, but we were there because you wanted to be there.
yeah,
So when the show ended, Paul F. Tompkins was like, I'm gonna be sitting back there in
yeah,
the bar and signing CDs and autographs. So get in line. And so you get up and you go around to get in line. I'm like, I'm not gonna get anything signed by Paul F. Tompkins. I'm just gonna go hang out at the bar. So I make my way from the front row at Rebar to where the bar is, and I'm just standing by a random booth, just kind of like minding my own business. And then I noticed people are starting to line up next to me, and then suddenly I look to my left, and Paula Tompkins is sitting down at the booth that I'm just innocuously standing next to, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm first in line to meet Paula
yeah.
Tompkins. So thankfully I actually had some cash in my wallet, so I'm like, can I buy a couple of CDs and have you sign them? And so yeah, he did.
That was nice. Yeah, and you, unlike me, didn't go. I didn't even mean to be here. I just. This is the
I wasn't
problem
even supposed
with.
to be working today.
This is the problem with how I sometimes will do things. Jennifer says that I like to pretend like I'm dumb and that it's my worst type of humor,
Yeah.
but it is also chaff for the times when I actually am dumb. But there's a thing that you pointed out to me, and I'm really taking this to heart, which is that if you think something dumb, but you realize that it was something dumb, you don't have to tell people what it was that you thought that was dumb. You can just
Right.
edit yourself and never acknowledge that thing at all, which I really should do. Um, anyway, the reason I remembered that is that okay, so you know that I'm on a Discord for indie role playing games, and you know we all sort of hang out in this place and we talk about them, and oh how I want to play this one, or hey did you see that this new thing came out, etc. etc.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens on there is that there's a user. I don't know if I should. There's a user there that is really great in the TTRPG space. There's Dungeons and Dragons, which everybody knows, and then there are all these other things, and they're really good at saying, "Hey, you know, there's actually another game that's kind of like this that you might like. It's put out by this indie publisher. You know, you should take a look." And some people find it very confrontational when that happens, but they're really good at doing it in a nice way, and also they're creative and funny, etc. And so anyway, there's a conversation about how A&W in Canada is better than A&W in the United States, the restaurant
Yeah.
portion of it, because they have better ingredients in Canada. And so I looked it up and I'm like, okay, so the next time I want to go on some sort of vacation, but I don't have a lot of money, I'll go to the nearest Canadian A&W, which is 4 hours away. Which, by the way, perks of living in Chicago,
Yeah.
Canada. It's in Ontario, 4 hours away. I'll go. And then this person writes, "Oh, I'm only 2 hours away from that. I'll meet you there." And then I say, and then I said, "Okay, great. If I ever end up doing it, I'll try to remember to ping you." And then underneath, I wrote, "Okay, try." Yeah, I said Paul F. Tompkins voice. Okay, try. I told the story, but it was again one of those things where it's like it's weird not to it's weird not to try. It's weird not to you know oh somebody that I like is coming to the place where I live. Well, maybe I'll go. It goes back to the disco shoes, which I've talked about before. I think disco skates. Uh, Different strokes. Willis wants some disco skates.
Right.
His disco skates are the MacGuffin. I didn't know what the term MacGuffin meant at the time
Yeah.
that I watched that episode of Different Strokes, but they're the MacGuffin. He wants to get the disco skates, so he does something else to do it. Same sort of thing. you and I uh, were hanging out in Chicago. Uh, you came and visited. It was
Just
famously,
this time last week.
and you're like, "Oh, I kind of want to go to Chinatown," and I was like, "Yeah, we could do that." And it's like, "Well, we will do that. Why, why leave it as a, you know, it's I'm not saying that it's like the year of yes or anything like that, but why do I do that? Why do I say, oh yeah, I guess if we have time, maybe that could,
Yeah, yeah,
why
yeah,
not
yeah.
just say, oh yes, I will do it,
Fear of
or
commitment.
hell no, I won't do it if it's something I don't want to do. Why am I always
Fear of disappointing somebody.
fear of
It's like
taking
I'm
a
playing
stand, fear
password.
of conflict, fear,
Yeah.
yeah, cowardice, you're scared, you
Things that Paul does.
things
Things I naturally
things
do.
that
Things that make
things
me
that
get up at
are
night.
shameful, things that people
Things
shouldn't
you
lie
find in
awake at bed at
Chinatown.
night thinking about. Uh, all of those things. Oh, that was something that I think you and I proposed as an improv game that we never actually did, which was Impossible Password, where you had to, like, Ben, have to give me three times to say something. We could play it right now, actually.
Oh,
You
hooray!
have to you give me three things to say in the password, right? And then you, Ben, have to guess what that password is. And the big thing is this, that I, Paul, have no idea what it is that I'm giving you. You have to, it's makes sense. Uh, okay, Kentucky Fried Chicken, a spring,
Uh,
the color yellow.
things that you find on the street in a small town.
Exactly. Yes, and that's it, and that's always the thing. Yeah, you give me one. We'll
Yeah.
try it one more time, and then we can retire the bet.
A box of Kleenex. Um, the evolution of man. The wheels on a bus.
The things that I put on my desk before a night in, um,
Yes.
or whatever. That sort of.
Wheels on a bus. They go round and round, you
Uh,
know. Where's my head?
hey, have you seen? The wheels on that bus go round and round, if you know
If you
what I
know what I
mean.
mean.
Uh, for those of you playing at home, that's sort of an autism joke, not exactly, but obsessing over vehicle types. There was a kid who was really obsessed with vacuums, and he could tell you what vacuum it was by the sound that it made.
Wow. Hey, speaking of vacuums, did you hear
Um,
about these hackers that hacked into like Roombas and were chasing?
no.
Oh yeah. So what happened was, I guess the Roomba software might be open source and people just like got into it. So what they were
Mm.
doing is they would control the Roomba and they would chase the household pets, these random household dogs and cats with the Roomba. And I did not know this. The Roomba has a speaker. And so the people who hacked into the Roombas were yelling at the people in the house. I heard that they were mostly yelling slurs, which makes this sort of a gross
Oh,
story.
oh, geez.
But um, still, chasing, using, using the vacuum cleaner to chase and terrorize a cat is kind of funny.
Yeah. I,
Well, like I heard this story on Wait,
I'm.
Wait, Don't Tell Me this morning, and one of the panelists was like, "Why did they put a speaker in a vacuum? Why they want the vacuum to be louder?"
Well, I figure that it's probably a speaker that they use for like alerts and stuff like that, and it's not supposed to transmit a human voice
Until you
necessarily,
hack
but
into its software somehow.
yeah. So interesting. Here's the thing. We can agree that slurs applied to people aren't funny.
Correct.
A robot vacuum chasing a domesticated animal while yelling a slur. in and of itself kind of funny.
Well,
It's the slur itself isn't funny, but
yeah. The what I found funny, not about the slur, but about the vacuum chasing the cats or dogs, is because if you've ever used a Roomba, these things are slow, right? They
yeah,
will not catch the cats or dogs, right? So it's
yeah,
imagine like there's
it's a
that.
it's a slow moving zombie.
Yeah, it's a slow moving zombie, or the scene in like the first Austin or the second Austin Powers movie where like somebody is on like one of those steel drum like street flattening tractors, right? And somebody's just standing there going ah, and Austin Powers is on the thing, he's slowly moving forward, and the person who
Okay,
could legitimately run away but just stands there yelling.
so the guy who played the Green Goblin's son in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. His name is
James
Franco,
Franco.
James Franco. Okay, his brother, David Franco, is in Now You See Me, the movie about the magicians that rob banks, etc.
Okay,
And there is a scene in like I guess the middle of the film where he is fighting. Who's the guy that plays Bruce Banner in
Mark
the
Ruffalo.
Avengers? He is fighting Mark Ruffalo and this other guy, and the other guy is one of those guys that you see in a lot of other things. Um, using magic tricks, and it was compelling enough. I saw a clip of it. It was compelling enough to make me watch the whole movie. Now, the whole movie not that good, but that scene is kind of great. Uh, so why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I saw Now You See Me, the film. Ben, I've watched it,
The whole
and it's
thing,
not good, but it's not good, but it was pretty much enjoyable. But there's a problem with it.
not good but enjoyable.
The problem is that there's only one major star in the film that is a person of color. That's Morgan Freeman. And spoilers for Now You See Me, he turns out to be the bad guy. And so the
Right
only
on.
person of color in the main cast ends up in jail at the end of it. It's not good.
When was this movie made? Is it a
Like
newer
two,
movie?
it's like 2012.
Okay.
The
Which
second
doesn't
one
feel
was in
like 12 years ago, but it
2016.
is.
Well, anyway, yeah, it's 12 years ago. The other one was 4 years after that, and now there's gonna be a new one. They're working on a third.
Like a reboot or
Now,
part three?
part three. Now, here's the thing,
Is it
Ben.
called Now You See Me? Part two is called Now You Don't.
See, that's this is the problem. It has been fodder for many stand-up routines,
I
and I
bet.
think Kevin Smith actually gave a talk about it, about how horrible it is that the second Now You See Me movie is simply called Now You See Me and then the numeral two, right? And not Now You Don't.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that it was never Now You Don't is because it was thought of to be a trilogy. Like
And
they knew there was going to be
there's
another
no
one, so you
third.
couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I submit that you could have called it Now You See Me Two, TOO, and then me could have been capitalized. Now you see me too. Um, but
Do you see
here's
me? Now you see me. Now you don't.
so now you see. This is my thought. Uh, now you see me. Number one. Now you don't. Number two. And then number three is, hey, I'm also a movie. I think it would have worked out great.
Untitled Now You See Me third movie.
I still also submit that Washington should have called their team the Washington Footballs. I think that would have been great.
I'm kind of on your side. I don't think they should have been called the Washington Footballs, but I think Washington Football Team was a legit name.
Yeah, well, I maybe they didn't like it because it was too British, but but take
Tell that to any soccer club in town that calls themselves, the Sounders
yeah,
FC,
Washington Football Club is great. What did they end up calling themselves? Do you know?
the Commanders. But it's
Uh,
Washington football. It was Washington football team, WFT.
oh,
What
oh
the?
no. Oh, it went blank.
Did
It
something
went
go
blank,
wrong on
Ben.
your end? Don't go
No,
blank.
it's still going. Okay. All right. What time do you have right now?
6:36 on the clock, but I have 31 minutes on the recording.
Okay,
So
we are
you got
doing
here 5 minutes too late.
pretty good. I'm at 30:28 on the recording.
Since we've hit a pause in the dialogue here, I'll tell you that we have a viewer on the YouTubes. Kat is watching us. Hey, Kat.
Cat, hello, cat, halo, cat.
Halo,
That's a
Cat.
totally
Like
different.
Halo Kitty.
I Now, do we know who Cat is? Is Cat
Yeah, Cat.
anyone that we
Cat used to
are?
run Weird and Awesome. You know them.
Oh, Cat. Hey, Cat. Sorry, there's also, and my apologies, Cat. There's also a Cat Ogden who was a showrunner for the Bravo TV show that I was
She says hi.
on. Hello, Cat. And welcome. Thank you for being here. And all of a sudden, I regret everything that we've ever. Uh, no,
I regret
no,
nothing.
it's
And by
no
nothing, I mean everything.
interesting things happening. Okay, so Ben, I was
I do know
on
Ben.
a documentary called "A Glitch in the Matrix" about simulation theory.
Correct.
Uh, so at one point in time, somebody reached out to me and they said that they had something that they wanted to tell me, and it seemed just a little bit too
Sus.
eager, if that makes sense. Like it probably was fine. It was probably all fine. But I've got when you do a documentary about how you think the world may not be real, somebody going, "Oh, I have some very important information that you would find interesting,"
Yeah.
makes me a little nervous. But I always thought that things maybe could come out of that, if that makes sense. And so I've been waiting for another contact of some kind of someone who's talking about this sort of stuff. And the director of the film wrote to me and said that somebody had reached out to him, a filmmaker, wanted to talk to me about a film that they were doing that has some similar, like, kind of um, overtones, if you will, or
Okay.
whatever. And so I talked to them a little bit today. And it's whenever I do these things, I'm always like, I don't know if
Are
I'm
these?
like,
Is this supposed to be like an informational interview, or are they? I'm sorry, I was kind of distracted. Are they
oh,
making a film as well?
they're making a film. And they just wanted to talk about their film in general, just bounce ideas off of me and stuff like
Okay.
that. Which I'm always, anyone listening to this podcast, I'm always happy to do. Because I like talking about, these, as you know, Ben. Uh,
Every
and as
week
I
for an
know, Ben.
hour. I know it.
Yeah, yeah. So the big thing is that and I don't know how much he wants me to talk about, but it's an interesting cat. He's from China, uh, lived in Canada for a while, is currently living in Mexico,
It's around.
and has spent some time in Silicon Valley. And if this makes sense, going from Mexico to Silicon Valley is kind of a head trip in and of itself. But one of the things that he's talking about a lot, and we talk about it on this program as well, AI and how it, is gaining prominence. More people are, thinking about it and doing stuff and all that.
Right.
The basic thing that like has sort of, and if you listen to me talk about, like in the past, if you listen to me talk about, and no one's gotten to me, this isn't a thing. It's just something I've thought of. Um, we may have even had this opinion on the show before. It is getting better, right? AI gets better over time, but it's
Improving.
still, yeah.
Getting better though.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Um, but one of the things that I have I've started thinking about more and more is kind of confirmation bias. Might not be the right term, but um, thinking AI is better than it is a trap that you can fall into very easily. And I was talking to Jennifer about it, and she has this criticism of prodigies. And for a little while, she worked in the Seattle Youth Symphony,
Yeah.
etc. Um, and the idea is basically this: you've got a young kid who can play at an adult level, right? And it's amazing. Oh, this kid's playing at an adult level, but that doesn't mean that they're the best at the adult level, right? It just means that they're very good for a child, and you're impressed because they can do something advanced of what
They're
they
graded on a
should be able
curve.
to do or what you would expect them to do. Sort of graded on a curve, right? The idea that um, you have someone listen, like imagine if you will, and this is shorthand with you and me, right?
Yeah.
Let's but you so you have this kid and they're good, right? And they're playing really they're playing well for a child, right? And then you take a recording of that and you give it to Joseph Krebs and you say, "Hey Joseph, please evaluate this person's playing," right? And he'll listen to it and he'll be like, "Well, I mean, it's nothing special.
This sounds like it was
It's
done by a 12-year-old.
That's that. I was thinking more specifically about you play Joseph some electronic music, and he says, "Well, my refrigerator makes a similar noise," that sort of thing. It's like they're good, but they're good with an asterisk by them, right?
Yeah.
Like
In context.
so, generative AI stuff
Yeah.
at the level it is now, right? People who aren't in the arts look at it and go, well, this is amazing. This is the best thing that I've seen. This is, the fact that a computer can do this is great. They're going to be outperforming us at some point in time, right? They say all these things. And I, you know, fall into the trap of like, so I ask it, make me a picture of blank, right? I haven't used it in a while, but let's just say, make me a picture of blank. Oh, let's be J. Jonah Jameson. Make me a picture of Spider Man.
I want a picture of Spider-Man.
But what you get is a picture of something that looks kind of like Spider-Man. Could be the Blue Beetle in a red costume. Uh, and he's got like, three fingers on one hand and, eight on the other, etc. But it looks like a superhero, looks kind of like Spider-Man. And you're like, well, that's impressive for what it is,
Yeah.
right? But then later on, it goes through more iterations. And oh, look, this is Spider Man. I mean, it's a Spider Man character,
It
right?
learns. Yeah.
And then you say, we'll do a Spider Man character kind of like, you know, Mobius would draw. And then you get a Spider Man that looks like Mobius, right? Once you get to the technical level of being able to do something like that, what's next, right? And this goes back to the problem that artists then like you and me get to of like, we have, yeah, thanks. Ben did finger quotes. I did a sarcastic thing, but I mean, we are artists in a way, Ben. It's true. Um, what do we decide to do, right? Well, we throw marshmallows at each other and be spectacle, right?
Yeah.
This isn't supposed to mean anything necessarily. You're just supposed to go, whoa, what was that? That was crazy. You give someone a that was crazy time period, right, or thing. You give them a bit of respite from thinking or whatever. Right now, the fact that it can do things is the impressive thing, right? Oh, look at that. That looks almost as good as, this picture over here, etc. And photography, right? For a while, just the fact that it could make a picture was enough film,
Yeah.
right? Look at that train coming towards us, you know. But eventually, at some point in time, you start like, okay, Francis Ford Coppola, right? Just finished this movie. I forget what it's called. Is it called Megalopolis? Is it something like that?
Yeah. New Adam Driver movie.
Yeah. New Adam Driver movie. Who this? Um, but the basic thing is that he's an acclaimed director and he's making this film. And a lot of people are saying it suffers from bloat. It's they don't like it,
It's not been very well
etc.
received, no.
Right. Um, would you say that Francis Ford Coppola knows how to light a scene and make an image show up on screen correctly?
I would say
Yes, right?
yes.
He's good at mixing sound, can hire someone who can mix sound well so you can hear it, right?
Yeah.
All the technical aspects of the film are good, right? The question is, what is he saying? What is his point? How does the plot work, etc. And that's where most of the criticism probably comes in. And that's, I think, where AI is going to hit the wall. Is not necessarily, oh, these visuals are stunning, right? This is great. Maybe sometime, you can do that. You can get to the point where an image looks really good. I've seen some AI images that I like personally that look interesting.
I
Um,
saw an AI generated video of Trump in the McDonald's eating French fries, and it looked real enough on first blush.
Now, here's the question: when you saw it, did it make you happy?
No.
So, and I guess this is my point, right? Once we get to the point of, well, AI can do stuff now, the question is not can you get it to do something? And I use the example of the difference between scratching and playing a record, right? Right now, with AI, people are playing the record. I want a picture of this, so I get a picture of this, whatever. But who is using it in a way that makes me feel happy or sad, or who is using it to do that stuff that art is supposed to do?
That's the human element that elicits
Yeah,
emotion from whatever art that they create.
and I do think that it is possible. Here I have this book that I found when I was cleaning that you may be familiar with.
Can't see all of it. What's it called? Still can't see it.
Oh, okay. It's
Un semaine de bonté.
which is or A Week of Kindness.
Yeah.
It's by Max Ernst, right? And this image is of a bird-headed person who's like murdering two people, right? So Max Ernst was making collages, right?
Yeah.
People sometimes say that AI is a collage. It's not the way that the let's see the bird-headed people here. It's not actually the way that it works exactly, but conceptually, maybe it's not the way it works physically, but conceptually, it's sort of you have a whole bunch of images that were generated by people. It learned off of those images, and it creates images that use the I'm trying to like thread the needle and say something that both sides would agree on.
You're both
Um,
siding it? Come on.
oh yeah, it's using techniques that it learned from watching other or ingesting other people's art without compensation
Yeah.
to create like images. Not the exact images, but images that use. And this is the thing that's really interesting because the laws as they're written now are kind of interesting in that a person's use of light and brushstrokes and things like that are kind of the idea that they maybe are protected. You say that you can't copyright a style, right?
Yeah.
But there are aspects of it, and I don't have the quote, right? I quoted it at one time when I was using it for the opposite thing, where I was saying, okay, look, so the people who want to do self-driving cars, right? Their concept is we want to make a self-driving car. We should be able to go through every single photograph, copyright or no, to show stop signs at all different sorts of angles, so that these things know what a stop sign looks like, so that they'll stop when they see a stop sign. And so we should have fair use to use this thing, right? And that was a judgment that was made. But the thing that wasn't made, that was listed in that thing, is that they actually have things that are considered separate. And the artistic style of a photograph was one of the things that was considered separate. So the stop sign itself isn't, you can use that. And you can use the photograph if you want to see what a stop sign is. But if you want to do like how the person lit the stop sign, that becomes something that may be considered protected. It was really interesting. This is like 3 years ago. It sounds like maybe when they wrote that the things that the AI are just learning, which is, the program is learning, um, lighting, strokes, the use of color, etc. All that may actually, they haven't gotten there yet, right? The problem, and I think I mentioned this before. Did we talk about the photographer in Germany who lost his case?
Probably.
There was a photographer in Germany sued Li the Leon folks, the people that made the database that people use to train their AIs on, because he sued to get it out of the database, and the German court said, "Well, this database is not a commercial product. You can't sue them. They aren't making any money off of this. They're giving this product away for free, which they are, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said we would. What you haven't done is sued the people that are making the models. Which to me, I think they're giving this guy a blueprint for his next court. They're like you can't you can't sue these guys, and they
Oh,
didn't go so far as to
sue the
say,
people who make the models. Excellent. I'll do that next time.
well, and that's but when I say I think they're giving a blueprint, I think that's why they said it. I think
Yeah.
that what they were saying was we can't do anything in this case, but if you had done this, we would be very interested to listen to that case. So, what does that have to do with you and me, Ben, and what we do? You and I famously do not use AI for any of our stuff. And the interesting thing is, of course, um, for those of you who didn't know, and this is because I didn't know because I haven't been paying attention. Spin the Bottle, where Ben and I used to perform at Annex Theater regularly, no longer exists, and it made me feel weird because I always thought that Ben and I could at some point in time just
Go
show up
back.
again
Yeah.
and start doing it again, but that house doesn't exist anymore. We can't go back. Um, but and yet our longest running performance art piece is still here. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to it right now, the GudeLaurance podcast, a conceptual art piece by a um, duo of aging performance artists, still happening,
And
still
not
out there.
not done by AI yet.
Right.
I mean, it's only a
Eh,
matter of time where you and I, text each other, "Hey, you want to have our people do the podcast?" And then we just turn it on, and representatives of ourselves, our images, our voices, our thoughts talk at each other, and we go on about our business.
I do want to end, and this is great. We've got like 10 minutes. I do want to end on something that's I've been a little bit obsessed with lately. Uh, those of you who have listened to the podcast before know that there was something that I was obsessed with for a little bit,
Game
which
of
were
Thrones.
sovereign citizens getting pulled over by the police
Yeah,
and claiming that the police had no jurisdiction. Ben, if that's the shot, the chaser is that, of course, these people end up in court eventually. And what I've been watching on a pretty regular basis. I have YouTube again now. Still not looking at Reddit, but I have YouTube again. I'm watching court cases where sovereign citizens go in and argue before judges. Normally, what I've been watching is their contempt of court cases. So they've already been to court once, and now they're arguing that the court doesn't have any right to charge them, etc. And one of the things that they say that's very interesting is that they say the person that you're naming here in all caps as the defendant is not me.
yeah.
I am not this all caps person, and therefore you can't charge me. Now, here's the fun part about that. Most of these folks waive counsel, right? They don't want a public defender. They want to represent themselves. But then they go into the court and they say, well, this person isn't me. And what the judge then says is, well, if that person isn't you, you're not a lawyer. You don't have any right to defend that person. And therefore, that person isn't here. I'm going to issue a bench warrant for their arrest because they didn't show up to court today. If you're not that person, then we'll arrest that person, and then they'll come and be tried at a later date. And 9 times out of 10, what happens is the person say, "Okay, well, I am that person, actually."
I've
Um,
seen some of these where I saw one sovereign citizen confrontation with like a courtroom bailiff or security officer
ooh,
out front. And I can't remember the exact complaint. I think the guy, the sovereign citizen, wanted to like go into the courtroom for some reason, and the
oh,
security officer wouldn't let them. I think it
yeah, I
escalated.
remember
If I'm
this.
thinking of the right one, it escalated into a tasing.
Oh, well, I do know which one. That was an auditor, right? Which is auditors and sovereign citizens are normally similar.
An
But in
auditor.
this case, yeah, a First Amendment auditor where they go up to the police and they start filming them and they're like, "What are your crimes?" or whatever. Uh, but the main difference is that those folks um, aren't on trial usually. They're just going to the courtroom. They want to film the courtroom. They want to film the proceedings. Judge says you can't do that, and then eventually they get put in jail. These are
Right.
people that have gone to jail or are going to be put in jail who are doing this stuff. And the interesting thing is this, right? They say, "I'm not this person," right? I'm a representative of that person, but I'm not this person. When when we get to the point where you can have your virtual Ben, right? Your AI Ben that's been trained on you,
Yeah.
that you give permission to do financial transactions on your behalf, let's say, or to work on your behalf or do whatever. Are we going to be in a situation like that where they say, Ben, you're liable because this is your avatar that you trained? And you're like, well, no, I didn't do any of this stuff. I shouldn't owe any of this money. This is a separate entity for me. It's really an interesting idea. Um, I feel like I feel like we should be more cautious than we necessarily are
I'm
about our online personas.
getting the feeling that I'm probably just going to try to stay away from it uh,
Yeah,
in total.
and this is the interesting thing that I've noticed. Betty's kids, Betty's age and all that
Yeah.
are not into AI. It's not something. It's the older folks that are Gen
Because it's the
Xers and
older
older.
folks whose jobs are being taken by the AI.
No, no, that are into it that like it.
Oh, that like it, not
The
just paying
the
attention to
older
it,
folks, yeah, the
talking
older
about
folks
it.
are the ones who like it. And I think you're right. It's just a flip. They're kind of on an I got mine sort of thing. Like they're get. I mean, no one's going to get to retire, but
Yeah.
they're
Not that attitude.
the boomers and the Gen Xers, right,
Yeah.
are longer in the tooth, right? And also it's really funny because we don't this is an argument that we've had. We don't want to turn into our parents, right? We don't want to be, hey Betty, can you help me program the clock on the VCR, right? We don't like that. So this is one of the reasons why people our age like AI, because they can pretend it's the extension of the Google thing, right? I remember still when we were sitting around, I don't know if you were there or not, but John DeShazo had this like DeWalt yellow phone. It might
The
have been by
Canlis had one
Motorola.
too. Yeah.
Um, and I remember the first time that in a real time conversation, John DeShazo looked up a fact and said it, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing, right? And John DeShazo, pretty smart guy,
Yeah.
right? So this was just an extension of his personality. Oh, John knows what the answer is. And John would also know what the answer. Stephen too, right? Stephen would already know what the answer is in some of these situations. It wasn't until I was in a situation where someone that I considered, uh, and I don't know who this person is exactly. And if I think of it, I'm not going to say it on air, but I may tell you later if I do think of it. But it was where someone that we knew, a woman, if I remember correctly, was
I'm going to guess who it is. Okay, I've got it.
expounding, expounding extemporaneously. No, they're the good person though. Expounding extemporaneously on something they had knowledge of,
Right.
right? And like like their degrees in it, whatever. They're talking about it, and then some dude
It's always
corrected
a
her
dude. Yeah.
in real time because he had looked it up on his phone. And this is the thing he hadn't even heard of 5 minutes before.
Right.
But he's now like, well, actually, it's and that's when I was like, oh, this might not be good. And in many ways, AI, generative AI, is an extension of that. You don't know this. You didn't draw this. You didn't make this. Something else made it for you, and you asked it to, and it did, but you're not the person who knows this thing, right? That's what happened first. Everyone thought that they knew everything because they could look it up on a
Yeah.
search engine.
Which is something that we talked about before.
And now everybody thinks they know something because they can ask something else to look it up for them on a search engine.
I'm an artist because I know how to ask a computer how to do art.
Yep. And in some ways, right? There are artists who do art through, like I said, the Max Ernst thing, right? I would say this is art, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't draw any of these pictures, right? But he composed them. He took pieces off of it and he composed them, right? You do not have, at least right now, in the way that people do it, where they just do prompts, prompt jockeys, whatever. You don't have the ability.
Prompt
to
jockey.
make those choices, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, maybe we will. Maybe we'll have a little bit more refined. Like I would love to see a thing where I put on a helmet and I imagine something, and the picture that I imagined shows up, right?
You know what? The porn industry is going to be the first to lead that charge.
Yep. And that's the thing is that uh, the 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 porn industry and Disney. It's weird, but they're kind of neck and neck as far as the bleeding edge of
They should just
image
work
technology.
together, figure this out
And
together.
I mean, and I've seen some pictures. You'd think that they are.
I mean,
I don't know
now that
exactly.
Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain,
Oh, geez.
Steamboat Willie, if you know what I mean,
Uh, and with that, Ben, we'll
it's
uh,
time to end.
we'll talk to you next time on the Goody Lawrence podcast.
Time for me to go
Keep it
find some
wrong.
dinner in Marfa, Texas.
How's it happening?
Keep it wrong, Paul. I'll talk to you
Keep it
next
wrong,
week.
Ben.
Oh, Paul, next week is Halloween. We have to reschedule again
Oh, do we? Why? Are you
because it's
doing something for
Halloween.
Halloween?
Well, I mean, it's Halloween. I'm assuming you were going to be doing something.
I don't think I am. We'll talk about it.
We'll
We'll
talk about it.
see.
So
Yeah.
find
Oh,
us at
well,
some
what if
random time next week.
we do a spooky Halloween episode?
Ooh.
Oh, hey, one last thing, bit of housekeeping. Is the Internet Archive back?
Uh, it is not. The page is there, but you cannot log in yet, at least as of like yesterday.
Okay. So is anyone listening? Well, that's
Cat's been
no one's
listening.
Cat's been listening, but are the episodes up anywhere, or are we gonna have like three episodes that all drop at the same time?
As far as the audio podcast is concerned that you get through like Apple Podcasts and whatnot, there's been nothing for a couple of weeks, but people can go to
Okay.
our YouTube page and see the shows.
Gotcha. And again, not that anyone other than Cat, hello Cat, thank you so much for listening, has been doing that. But yeah, yeah. And so who knows? Maybe spooky real time Halloween episode. Maybe spooky pre-recorded Halloween episode on a Friday or something. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right.
I'll be in San Francisco that night, so
Wow.
I've yet to know what's going on. I don't know what's going
Have
on.
you been, have you been to San Francisco? San
Oh yeah,
Francisco before? Oh
I've
yeah.
been to the city before.
It's like living in the future, pretty much. So, all right. Talk to
All
you more
right.
later, Ben.
Bye,
Thanks again. How's it
Paul.
happening?